Path of a Dream podcast, where dreams come true. Slowly but surely, we transition into this new, beautiful place where everything we want is beautifully possible. And you're not going to wake up every day feeling like that. But as you continue on this path, as you continue on this journey, you get there. You do. So, here's my great thing. We're going to go ahead and ground ourselves in our greatness because that's how we start every day. My great thing is, I think I'm on day 16 of a daily yoga practice. This is something that I've always wanted to do. And I don't think I've ever trusted my body enough to trust it to really sink into this as a mode of exercise. And this has always been my desired mode of exercise, right? But in my mind, my body as an athlete, come on, my body has to be abused in order for it to perform. And, right, it has to be pushed to its limit. And this is what I'm finding with yoga is my body is being pushed to its limit. It's in a completely different form and fashion, right? Because it's coming from a place of love and existence and acceptance with where my body is. And that's one of the things that I love most about it is the entire thing really is built for you to exist where you are right in that given moment. And this is what I will say. Yoga is not really for the faint of heart. I know that I have tried it before and not been able to be in a mental place where I could stand that. And for me, I always loved running, right? Because it gave me this chance to escape my mind. But I think slow my mind down to only process one thing at a time. And what I'm now realizing is that while running allowed me to process probably about 3 things at a time, which was extremely slow for me compared to where I was. So that was like such a life-giving thing. Yoga allows me to process nothing and to focus on just being. And while trust in past instances of my life, we should really title when I'm going like BC. I don't know that that's what we would title it, but like that's what I'm talking about. BA maybe, before awakening. But like that past life, there is not a chance that I could come to that mat and fully dive into the practice as it's set to be, right? Because my mind couldn't settle. I didn't want my mind to settle. There was a scarcity factor in my head that if I let myself settle, everything would just go away, right? And I would lose all these great things about me that are good and true. And guess what? As I pulled myself back from all of that, I'm realizing that it is just who you are. It may go away for a little bit of a period, but it always comes back, right? This is your intrinsic being. There is no reason to keep it conditioned. It's true to who you are, period. And it's like being who you are is just riding a bike. You get back on it. So anyways, diving deeper into yoga today, and today was really just a breath series. And that would have been something that I would have sat, came to the mat, and been mad. Like, what? We're supposed to be working out. I don't know if you realize. And I'm just trusting my body in that this is the place that I've been called to, and that this exercise will align best with my body and mind and is where I need to be. And so I wasn't even mad this morning. It was like so life-giving to sink fully into my breath, and not just life-giving from the physical body side, life-giving from the mental side, right? And it's a full circle moment for me, because I know so much of this work now, the acceptance of this as a full form of exercise, the acceptance of me just accepting and loving my body for what it is and not making it have to be something on a certain timeline, which doesn't even make sense or really coordinate, right? Like with the work that I'm doing now, how important is it that I am mentally strong, that I am sinking into my spiritual being every day? Yeah, super vital, right? Because I don't know if you know this, but if you're building anything, it's really important that you know who you are, what you're building, and why, right? That you stay in alignment with all of that. And part of that work comes with continued silence so that you can hear those things, so that you know what is for you, what is against you, what is good and whole and true. And that just comes from self-reflection and silence. And I know my work with Mia, the dietitian that I had on my show probably in October. I know my close work with her as I continue going through this, and I just finished up my workshop with her. I know that that gave me so much freedom to let go of the structure that I was putting around food, the structure that I was putting around exercise, the structure and importance of all of those things when that wasn't important to me, and that I let that distract myself from walking into the fullness, the full strength of who I could be, just because, that was something that I knew to be true about old me, and it was really hard to let go. And so, right, we had to drop that down in order to get to this place where I could fully practice yoga as a full form of exercise and be present there and not hating it. And this morning I showed up and I didn't hate it. Like it was beautiful. And I even did like the full release exercise of breath. And I was like, whoa, hey, are you talking about being able to win at yoga? Because like, I'm just saying, like, you said that this was going to be challenging, and it definitely was, but I did it. And everyone knows I love to win. So it felt good. It felt really good. And then it even felt good to like even let myself down from having to win the breath exercise. Like I remember putting that confine on it and being like, okay, you have to be able to do this. It's challenging, right? But like you should be able to do this because remember what you come from. Remember, you should be able to overcome and do anything. And even before we got into the 8 count breath in and out, I let that go. I let the confines of that go. Hannah, there's nothing to win here. This is about practice. This is about progress. This is about process. We are going to get better at this, but we're not winning today, and it's important that we aren't, right? And I got there. The first one, like it was hard to even know what that count was going to look like. It was hard to even understand how to take my breath in for that long, right? And I struggled. And then by the second one, that was a little bit better. And then by the third one, right, we were kind of coming into stride with how to work breath in that way. And gosh, it was just beautiful. And I would have never expected to have this relationship, especially given my prior touches with yoga. But again, I've always felt called to that practice. And so here we are. And I know that I couldn't have arrived here without everything that's led me to this point, right? I could have picked up yoga at any time, and I guarantee it wouldn't have stuck because I hadn't done the work necessary to allow myself to fully dive in here. So that's my great thing. I don't know. We're doing yoga, and it feels great. And before, it felt super complicated, sticky, gross, uncomfortable, almost like hateful, which is no place to practice yoga. So that's my great thing. Loving it so far on day 16 of doing it every day. And it feels better every day that I show up to the mat. So that's super exciting. Okay, let's go ahead and dive in. Yesterday I had this thought as I was getting off of the microphone. Is that how I would say that? I don't know. Okay, as I was getting off of the microphone, as if I sit on it or something, as I was kind of logging off, I had this thought of, okay, Hannah, yeah, what you think about, you bring about, great. So I just have to start thinking that I'm going to do these things. Okay, and I want you to notice that tone right there, because that's where it comes in. And this is such a normal instance of where you go mentally, right? Like we all move right into that passive aggressive. Okay, Hannah, I just have to start thinking and trust. I sat in a conference that I could barely afford to go to and was in the exact same mental place when someone said what I said yesterday to me. And this is where we all need to kind of get, and I'm hoping that this will maybe take you across and past that passive aggressive response, and you're still going to have it, right? I still was shifting through probably, and I still am struggling with this. It really isn't about winning all at once. You don't just shift right into only positive thoughts. In fact, you can't. Right? Even just pretending that you're only positive thought, it can only last for so long, and you transfer right back in. So it isn't about only being there all of the time. It really is about a law of the average. Can you have more positive than negative? The negative thought is still going to be there, but how we're overcoming that is what's important. And so right when I got off, I'm like, well, the deck is really stacked. And here's my explanation of that. Is it stacked? Oh, absolutely. Right? And think about it like this. Anyone who grew up with a good childhood, with most things playing in their favor, with not a whole lot of adversity, right? You are light years ahead of someone who grew up with the opposite. And this is what I want you to realize. Both people find ways to win, right? There aren't only people who had wonderful childhoods, who had everything in their favor at the top, right? There's a mixture. There are people who had everything against them, all the odds against them, and still found a way to rise up to the top. And there's the opposite too. And there are opposites in both directions. There are people who had everything against them and are still very much living in a everything against them world. And there are people who had everything for them and are living in a everything against them world. And so for me, as I start to remedy that in my head, I think, well, there really is no golden key for success. And that should inspire you. Right? There's no one way to win. And that should also kind of complicate things, right? Because you have to let down this idea that someone is coming to save you. Because there is no one thing, there is no one person, there is no one answer. And people who are trying to sell you on the fact that there is are probably making a lot of money off of suckers. I know, I paid for one of the conferences. Right? But even at those conferences, generally they're telling you this same thing. You can follow all this. It may not get you there. And I alluded to that yesterday. Normally, people who got successful of any kind don't have the exact answer for how they got there. They can give you their roadmap, but there isn't any one thing. Really, the one thing was just consistency and continuing down the path. And then it all flowed, right? And it's about opening yourself up. And so a good way to start opening yourself to the success that you want to see is really starting to talk down that voice that says that it's not possible. And I had this discussion with my daughter last night. She's 7, so trust. Hopefully it transcends. She goes, so every night before they go to bed, I say the same sign off that I say here on this podcast. And it started in their bedroom, and I decided that I would bring it here too. And I kiss their heads and I say, you're smart, you're strong, you're beautiful. What are you going to do? And they respond with change the world. And so my 7-year-old last night, as I kiss her head, she says, Mom, I want to change the world, but I simply cannot. Right. And this is the same child, like last night, and I'm like still, I can't stop laughing over this. Last night I come downstairs and she had built herself a paper TV, built herself a paper remote or handheld gaming system. I don't know what those are called. Like the handset for a gaming console, like a PS3 or something. She had built the little thing that you play on. I don't know what it's called. I should, but I don't. And right, so like this child has the ability to create whatever she wants. So she tells me, Mom, I don't have the things I need to change the world. I'm pretty sure that I can, but I don't have the supplies. And you won't get them for me. And I'm like, okay, well, tell me, what's your vision for changing the world? Well, Mom, I have all of these ideas for designing clothes. And I designed clothes on garbage bags that we had under the kitchen sink. And that was good, but nobody's going to wear those. Nobody's going to wear those garbage bag clothes. That's not realistic. And so I think I got to stop. And I said, well, you're already designing on the garbage bag. How do you know that people aren't going to wear those? Well, I guess because they aren't going to want to wear garbage bags. I'm like, well, they're beautiful. So they might. And she said, well, I want to have fabric. And I said, well, what if you start with the garbage bag as just a template, so when you get fabric, you know what you're designing and you're ready. Well, Mom, I can't even do that because I don't even have things to decorate those. Okay. Well, did you run out or do you just need to make more? Well, I just need to make more of the things that I decorated with the last one. Oh, okay. But you have stuff to do that. Well, yeah. Okay. But Mom, you know what, Mom? I don't have... It was hard to draw on these garbage bags. It was hard to draw my designs on them. And, this is like the 5th excuse for why she can't change the world as a 7-year-old. And I said, you know what? Maybe the idea just isn't quite ready yet. And she's like, what? Huh? And I said, well, you have a longer list of reasons why you can't than you can. And so it's going to be hard to get there even if you have the supplies, right? Because you got to start shifting your mindset. If this is an idea that you want to bring to life that is going to, in fact, change the world, as you say, then you would do anything, right? Maybe this just isn't it. Or maybe it is, and you just need to start thinking about the idea more than the problem. And then, I don't know if she even listened to what I was saying. She may have just fallen asleep, but hopefully, oh yeah. So then she goes, you know what, Mom, you're right. Maybe the idea will come to me in my dream tonight. I'm going to go to sleep. We'll see where she gets. But I think truly the the deck being stacked against you is sometimes a lot of your own doing. And how often do you stack that deck because it's just easier, right? It was so much easier for her to stack the deck, right? Because then you don't have to be responsible to solve the problem. The idea is in your head, but you don't have to bring it to life. It's easier to sit down here and not figure it out. Of course, it's so much easier to come up with the list of reasons why you can't than the list of ways that you can start making it happen. Because no question, you can start making anything happen. Your willingness to just take the first step is what's important, right? And because of that, you can do anything. And I want to remind you that the deck is absolutely stacked. And so here's the important part of all of this. Once you decide that this is something that you're going to do, you're going to need proof that you're good or that it's important that you continue this work. Because those people that, and you're not competing with anyone in this world, you're truly just competing with yourself. I actually don't even really recommend finding out about your competition, because sometimes I think it works you into a very specific box, and your ability to just do makes everything you create really original or exactly the same sometimes, because sometimes, right, you've already kind of seen it. And so it's hard to not do whatever that is. So this is what you need to understand. Once someone has success in anything, it can be completely unrelated, right? They have started to test just concept of themselves. And so if you've never had success, if you've never seen success anywhere close to you, it's going to seem really far-fetched for you to do that, which is why we stay in these cycles of lack of greatness, which is also why we practice our greatness every day. Because once we start calling that in, right, the world can start aligning with that. We're asking for our great thing every single day. Do you realize just the karmic reaction of the universe with that? I mean, I've seen it work. Sheesh. I've seen it move mountains that it wasn't supposed to move faster than you can even imagine. And that was because we were calling on it. It wasn't because we were greater than we were before. It was because we were calling it in. We were calling greatness in. Hey, come at me, greatness. Let's go. I need you here, right? And so you will start to gather your own proof of greatness. And that's super important. And that's really kind of why we do that, right? If you wanted to start anything, if you wanted to start going back to school, if you wanted to start down a new career path, if you wanted to build your own business, whatever that looks like for you, if you wanted to show up today and say, you know what, life is going to be on my terms. This is what I think I want to do, and I'm going to start exploring that. You would want to see some sort of success or like return on investment. Why? Well, that's kind of how the world tells us we have to operate, right? That we are good. And, you know, it's true because it's human nature. We don't actually have to prove or do anything. We don't have to find success anywhere. That's just what we expect as humans, right? In order to tell us that this is good and true and whole. And some of the journeys that you are going to take, and this is why consistency is the most important, some of the journeys that you're going to take aren't going to pan out, but they are going to teach you something very important. And trust, I don't know if you listened to the first year and a half. I'm not even sure that I wasn't trying to do it 6 months ago. I was in such a forced state of being like, no, this is what I'm going to do. This is what's going to happen. I am in control of the timeline when I absolutely am not. But through that, I tried a whole lot of things. I probably started about 7 different business ideas, skinned all of my knees, all 2 of them, but skinned them 7 different ways, almost got them raw in response, right? Didn't see a whole lot of success, but continued moving forward because success to me was testing, right? Trying, seeing what stuck, seeing what was going to be for me. And then now transferring into this place where I'm at this higher understanding that what is for me is going to come to me whether I am slaving all day or not. And so my job really is to be the receptor of what is to be and to kind of sit back. And while I'm still moving forward, right, I'm not pressing a timeline that isn't true anymore. Okay? Do not hold even last month against me. This is all about learning and growing here, people. We're all moving through this together. And just as of probably about the middle of January, it became this new enlightened idea, state of being, that it's all divine timing. And so because of that, you shouldn't hold success really as something that's going to happen right away. Sometimes the path really is in skinning your knees, in understanding what is for you and what isn't. And so, yes, there are absolutely people who have the deck beautifully stacked for them, right? Which could lead to a lot of fast-paced success. And you sitting there, being patient, taking your time, waiting it out, are going, well, but, right? And you're stacking up your excuses for why you can't get successful. And I know, right? They're privileged, or they have all this money and they have all these things. And yes, no question, the deck is better stacked for them, but it's also a little bit stacked against them, right? Because in your ability to keep rising up, you're seeing what isn't sticking. They may be blowing past what is meant for them, and they may get further in the journey. They may have more upfront success, in quotes, but they may feel worse later on, and you won't know that. And it doesn't matter, right? We want goodness for everyone, whether their deck is stacked or not. Like, I hope that you're on the exact journey that you're supposed to be on. Yes, right? But for those of us, and even my deck was stacked better than most. And so for those of us that are building from scratch, just trust your ability to continue moving forward. And the beauty and the resilience that is going to build into your brand and your consistency and your messaging. Like, it doesn't matter how many times you fall, right? Figure out what you can learn there and then pick up and keep moving forward, whatever that looks like for you. And sometimes that message is calling us to just stop, right? I just came out of one of the biggest stop cycles that I've ever had in my life, and I had to call that in, right? Like, I had to give myself permission to sink in there, and I had to get permission from a lot of people. And that, the buildup of that, the allowance to do that, didn't happen overnight. That was a lot of sacrifice. That was a lot of decisions that were made 6 years ago to build up to this ability to do this. So really, you can do anything. And yes, the deck is stacked against you and for you, but you make the decision for how that's going to help you or hurt you. And once you shift over into it becoming your competitive advantage, you really shift to a place where the deck no longer matters, right? You can do anything. You can do anything. Are you coming up with excuses or ways to get there? As always, you're smart, you're strong, you're beautiful. What are you going to do? Change the world.